Hi, I was just reading an article that is called "Message for the Movie Industry of the Day," and basically it discusses how Roger Ebert, uh, who is a very famous Chicago film critic in both newspapers and on television, formerly of uh, what is it, Siskel and Ebert, and later Ebert and Roper. Unfortunately, he lost his voice due to throat cancer, as I recall. But he, anyway, uh, he wrote out. He now does all his criticism uh, via writing, and other critics or people in the entertainment industry will read aloud what he writes for his reviews. So anyway, he wrote out something, and I'm just going to read you what the article says because it doesn't say exactly what he says. Anyway, it's about why the movie industry's box office revenues have gone so far south this last year, 2011. He lists many reasons for the financial slump that include high ticket prices, the decline of a decent cinema going experience, competition from sites like Netflix, and a lack of choice at the theater for moviegoers. While American box office revenues haven't been this low since 1995, international box office business is booming. Foreign ticket sales for American films are at an all-time high and have increased 6 to 8% over last year. However, at home, movie attendance is down 4.4%. The message I get, he says, is that Americans love the movies as much as ever. It's the theaters that are losing their charm. Proof theaters thrive that police their audiences, show a variety of titles, and emphasize value-added features. The rest of the industry can't depend forever on blockbusters to bail it out. Now, of course, this is all very true. This is something that I personally have been saying for years, and this comes from experience not only going to movies and watching movies, but also I worked in a movie theater for roughly a year back around 2000, 2001. I literally was working New Year's Eve of 2000. Um, and let me tell you, first off, uh, movie theaters, many of them are absolutely filthy. They go with a lot of the theater owners contract with people who where it's basically a family company and basically everyone in a family, extended and otherwise, works for the company, and it's usually immigrants. Not saying anything bad about immigrants, but in the case of uh, the theater I worked at, they did not do their job, and we had stains in carpeting that just went away basically because people were walking on them, and it just got eroded over time. Uh, Eventually, I think I got so sick of it because it was just disgusting and it looked so bad that I took some spray cleaner and some paper towels and got up what I could, uh, which I had done in the first place in order to try and take care of it because it was a sanitary problem. This was nacho cheese that I can specifically remember, but we had floors that were sticky that never seemed to get mopped. It was just absolutely ridiculous. And a lot of that has to do with the way people treat the movie theater. Sure, it can get messy, but a lot of it also has to do with just the way the theaters are cleaned because those people are allowed to bring like diaper bags and such, but we would find occasionally used condoms, dirty diapers bundled up, and people wouldn't bother tossing those in the trash. They would just leave them there for us to find, and all we'd have to pick it up with was a dustpan and a broom. Also, the employees aren't too happy that work at a movie theater. I thought when I applied for the job, oh, this is going to be great. It's not going to be too bad. we weren't allowed to lean over or sit down at any point while we were on shift. Now, I can appreciate not being allowed to sit down, but we were on our feet all that time when we were ushering, and ushering is basically clean up garbage duty, as well as taking tickets. Concessions is no thrill either because it's fast paced, it's crowded behind the counter, uh, and on top of that, the snacks aren't even very good. You know, you have your sugar saturated sweets, and then you have your fatty, salty uh, foods uh, covered in, cheese like product that's basically uh, spicy cheese flavored mayonnaise. It's not real cheese. Um, anyway, it's really gross. And, there were times when I actually had to, they actually charged us with dusting the place. I was like, don't we have a cleaning company that comes in after the place is closed? Don't they dust and vacuum and get everything cleaned up so that it's, perfect for the next day? Or at least for the week? They just told me to shut up and get back to work. So I did. But anyway, it was just a really weird situation. So aside from that, there were. I'll tell you a bit more about uh, what the movie theater going experience has become, because in America, obviously, it's very different from internationally, and this is an internationally released video, so I figure it's worth discussing. Uh, the other thing about it is movies that you go and see, there's basically one of every flavor, not two or three of every flavor, one. There will be an action film out for that month or that couple of months, maybe one or two comedies that appeal to different ilks. Uh, there will be a romantic comedy, there will be a horror movie, there will be a sci-fi movie, and that's about it. It'll kind of run through those genres and not really go anywhere else, unfortunately. So, what does that leave us with? Uh, well, that leaves you with a choice of you know what do you like? You like this flavor? Okay, well you have one choice. You have this one choice. It's a storyline. It's certain actors who aren't necessarily any good. You don't have any choice of sci-fi movies or kids movies. I forgot kids and family movies. Uh, you get maybe a choice of comedies. And mind you, in 2000, 2001, that was when we saw like Meet the Parents come out, but you also saw Castaway come out, Lost Souls, which nobody remembers. Uh, I'm trying to think what else. Uh, you saw Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps, uh, Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, starring Jim Carrey, among others. And just really a wonky season for films. Like you were lucky if you had Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. But how many times can you see that? And mind you, back then the matinee was only $5.25. Now it's gone up $1 to $6.25, and that's at certain theaters uh, that still bother to have that low rate. They don't understand that if they have a lower price, like a few bucks for matinees or children, then suddenly it's less expensive of a night out. If they don't just rely on concession sales, and don't make that like a required part of the trip, oh, culturally it's like not a trip to the movies unless you have snacks that are overpriced. And there is a reason why uh, when I was in college, I used to uh, go to like a cheap matinee movie, and I would stop off at the dollar store before going and get like a Mondo size candy bar for like a dollar or two. And really, the only thing they had at the movie theater that was worth anything was the nachos, and that was that particular movie theater, which was not part of a chain. It was a one-off, which is very rare. The chain theaters have taken over, and that's one of the shames, because you no longer have really any competition. So that's part of the problem. You have no competition means you can charge whatever you want, means you can gouge the customer for choosing a less than stellar product, which is going to see the movie. Uh, as opposed to watching it at home, streaming online or on DVD or on Blu-ray, uh, where you can pause it, rewind it, get subtitles if you have hearing issues or if the kids are too noisy or whatever. And, the home theater has become the new cinema. But, uh, you know, Panorama only works on a large screen, in my opinion. So, that aside, you have to take into account this when you're thinking, okay, what kind of movies shall we put out? And in a lot of cases, they delay films or they don't give films a broader release when they're really excellent. So, hold on one sec. Okay, this is possibly the latest released film VHS film I have. Uh, this one came out in 1999, and it stars Rupert Everett, I believe. No, I'm sorry, Terrence Stamp. Terrence Stamp. I forget who Rupert Everett is now. Um, anyway, Terrence Stamp, also known as General Zod. You can see him better on this side. And it's called The Limey. And it's an amazingly good film. I mean, this is a really good movie. It has suspense, it has murder and mystery. I literally got this for free, and it's like in perfect condition. And it's a VHS, which is like mind blowing. I haven't even tried to find it on DVD because I still have VCRs as well as DVD players, just because, why not? I've been able to get some movies on VHS for a lot cheaper uh, that are next to impossible to get on DVD and really, really expensive. So, anyway, I never heard about this movie, and this movie came out about the same time that I was working in the movie theater. Uh, and uh, Anyway, this movie is absolutely fantastic, and I had never heard of it until I saw it on a shelf and was like, ah, what the heck, it's free. So I took it home and I popped it in the VCR and I watched it and I was like, oh my god, it was just amazing. It was such a good movie. I was like, why haven't I heard of this before? So that's part of the problem is you have a lot of foreign releases or more independent projects that you don't hear about. One of the best ones that I ever saw that was like a really independent movie is on one of my film recommendations episodes, and that's Equilibrium. That's an independent movie that was done as cheaply as they could despite the scale, and with the cost of CGI effects, uh, they were able to still make it and make it really, really good. So, what you end up with is this fantastic product that is well worth the money to see, but you don't hear about it because it's in limited release. If they released more of these movies out, you would get a chance to see actors that you had never heard of before, that that you and you would get exposed to a lot more issues. I'll give you a couple of examples because you can also show classics and favorites and cult films, which is one genre that the independent theaters have latched onto. Uh, One here that I had never heard about but was released by Independent Film Channel Productions was Transamerica. And this is an excellent movie. All my friends have told me about it. I bothered to pick it up for really cheap. But another one that a local theater does, uh, you know, every year or so, is Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. This is a cult movie, and the Full Monty they don't even show on TV anymore. Uh, and what did they do? Did they bother showing these movies for, the movie-going public to see? No, these were independent foreign releases that the Full Monty got like the most press out of it simply because uh, I believe it was 20th Century Fox. Yeah, it was 20th Century Fox, so they released that and it was very popular and they showed it on TV all the time and I loved it even though they interrupted it with commercials. So what did they do? They don't bother showing old movies for like a double feature or something, which would be great. Movies that maybe they are hard to find or on DVD or on VHS or whatever, and people don't have copies of. Uh, One of the best films that I ever saw in the theater was Gone with the Wind. The original, they restored it and they brought it out to be seen. And I went down to the local independent theater where they show the independent movies. It's a bit of an art theater, but it's a great cinema. And I was able to finally see Technicolor and Panorama. What's that all about? You watch a TV show, it's no big deal, but you see it and you see Gone with the Wind, and yes, it idolizes this or idealizes this southern myth of the American South in the 19th century, but it also just is a piece of wonderful storytelling that spans over these years for the transformation of this female protagonist. And until you see it like that, it's a boring movie. And much the same can be said about Casablanca. It's a boring old movie that they show all the time, and at least they used to show it back all the time on like American Movie Classics back when it was owned by Turner and was using the Warner Brothers film library, which included a lot of MGM films and such that were very old. Anyway, all of that aside, I mean, you know, uh, I've recommended not one but two versions of Casablanca because the film is so good. I've also recommended Citizen Kane, which I have the super special edition of. They don't have a director's cut of it because the director had final say on the cut of the film. So, I mean, go and show these classic films. Have specialty screenings of films requested by local groups like, I don't know, churches maybe want to see The Passion of the Christ or The Ten Commandments. We used to do that on campus. We might watch a movie. But, I mean, my point is, you have to get over the idea of the blockbuster and the romance of going to the cinema when you have multiplexes and chain theaters that gouge you on the ticket prices. Make it a worthwhile time for the customer. Make it worth their money. Jerry Lewis used to stick into all his films the phrase "movies are your best entertainment," because movies were dying out, cinemas were dying out uh, because of television, and they started showing movies on television, so you could watch movies that you like to see there instead of going to the theater and watching uh, films that had come out a couple of years ago, and they were showing that in a double feature with a new film, which is what they uh, used to do. One of the best cinema experiences I ever had was at the same theater I worked at about a year before. They showed Keeping the Faith and Shanghai Noon, a romantic comedy and an action adventure film with kung fu. I was like, yes. We saw it. I really liked Keeping the Faith, but I like romantic comedies. Of course, Shanghai Noon, back when it first came out, was excellent. Even now, it's still not bad. So it's just one of those things where if you actually try to make it valuable for people, then they'll go and you'll make money on it. You know, keep keep a finger on the pulse of the people in your area. Don't just have mass marketed releases. Go for the independent films. And that's part of the problem with uh, the chain cinemas and multiplexes. Uh, Less competition, less value, less diversity of films to be seen, less diversity of stories to be told. Independent uh, filmmakers are squashed because they aren't able to get their films mass released in theaters. Whereas if they uh, are able to get them released through a chain of cinemas like the Jerry Lewis cinemas or uh, General Cinemas or any of these smaller chains as opposed to Lowe's and Regal, which I think Regal is the worst. Um, if they're able to get them out, then it's better because you're able to have these greater number of voices, these greater number of stories, and people will latch onto these films and they'll come back to view them again and again. And that is good for the company. If it's so inexpensive that you can go back and watch it again with friends or with a different group of friends or with your family, then that's okay. You know, then suddenly it's worth going. I have a stack of movies over here that I've looked at, that I'm looking at now. And for the cost of a movie ticket, I was able to buy a movie that I actually liked. Oh, so many of the movies that I've mentioned in my film recommendations series. I'm just looking here. Oh, uh, The Black Hole, Disney's The Black Hole, which is a bit of a cult film. Big Trouble in Little China, which is very much a cult film. This is Spinal Tap, also a cult film. Strange Brew, also a cult film. Joyeux Noël, which I recommended in a Christmas episode, um, which is a a uh, a wonderful foreign released film that I only heard about on CBS Sunday Morning one morning, and then never saw anywhere else except on DVD. Sicko, the Michael Moore documentary. I got that for about $8, which is about the cost of a movie ticket now. Um, just looking elsewhere here. Swing Kids, Top Secret, which was Val Kilmer's first film. Halloween, the classic, with Michael Myers, and just going on from there. Uh, and I was able to get all these movies for the cost of a movie ticket and able to watch it over and over again. And for the cost of less than two movie tickets, you can get, or for actually for the cost of a movie ticket, you can get a subscription to Netflix and watch as many movies as you want online, or watch them, get DVDs in the mail. Same price, $8, either way. And then you can watch it over and over again. So, I mean, that's why I rarely agree with Roger Ebert, but in this case, because I don't like his taste in films, but I think in this case we're on the same page. He and I agree that that cinema really needs to take a step back and look at the way it's running things now as opposed to the way it ran things back then. There's nothing wrong with showing older movies uh, if your shows aren't selling, if your blockbusters or your seasonal stuff aren't selling, and it shouldn't just be last month's flop. You know, get get some films that people like, make it a regular thing. Make it like, oh, we're gonna have a classic film series where we show like all these old black and white adventure films, and you can see like two or three of them Saturday afternoon for, I don't know, $5. Two or three movies for $5. You get to watch them. You don't like them, you go out into the lobby, or you go do something else for for an hour or so. It's fine. But they don't do that. And so it just kind of breaks your heart to think that cinemas will go the way of the dinosaur. But at the same time, if you have really uncaring corporations that just rely on Hollywood blockbusters and the same formulaic garbage recycled over and over again to entertain the masses for a jacked up price for um, for a seat in a smelly, filthy theater with stale, grease-covered popcorn, sugar balls of death in a box for candy, and nachos that have a wonderful cheese-flavored mayonnaise dipping sauce. I don't want any of that, frankly. And on top of that, I'll tell you something else. The garbage cans in movie theaters that are left under lights so you can see them, those things are cesspools because they think about it. All that sugary soda, all that starchy popcorn, all the paper containers for all that, the corn chips for your nachos, all of that goes into the waste basket, goes into the garbage can. And then someone like me had to go get that bag full of all its squishy wonderfulness, load it in a large bin without gloves, without a face mask to keep some of the germs out, and without eye protection to keep our eyes from getting infected, which, by the way, those three are the legal requirements for if you're going to be handling, hazardous materials and garbage and such. No, we didn't get any of that. Someone like me has to go and get that. And then on top of that, you toss in your used condom, your dirty diaper that maybe bursts in the bag just for fun. Uh, Delicious, right? That's exactly what some minimum wage guy needs. And in fact, a lot of movie theater uh, employees get employed like 39 hours a week because that way the company can only needs to pay them part time. But I was working there in high school, and I was working there so many nights. I'll tell you right now, uh, when you're not allowed to lean over, you're not allowed to have a seat while on shift, like unless you're going to the bathroom. Like if you just want to take a minute to rest your heels for a second, And then on top of that, there are meetings that you have to go to every month or so where it's mandatory or you're fired unless you have like a valid, excuse. It was just insane. So anyway, cinema's filthy, abused employees, filthy places to, the employees aren't filthy, the places are filthy. They're not fun, they're expensive, overpriced, they don't make it worth your while to go. When I worked there, it was very often cold. They had vaulted ceilings, but why? Why have vaulted ceilings if it just makes it harder to heat the place and makes it less pleasant? And of course they make cutbacks on theaters so that they aren't always, as good as they could be. Anyway, point being, cinemas are on their way out, unfortunately, and Roger Ebert and I happen to agree as to why. This is a warning for the cinema companies of America to shape up, or they will die out, and people will just flat out reject them, and films, uh, with all of their magic, will be released straight to online, straight to DVD, straight to cable, and cinemas will disappear. People will watch movies maybe in lecture halls on college campuses, and maybe in church auditoriums or something, fellowship halls and places like that, and that'll be about it. And in your own home, and that'll be the end of it. It leads to a more closed off society, unfortunately, and it leads to fewer people actually seeing really good movies, I think, unfortunately, because then it's a matter of who controls those means of getting to see those films. Um, so anyway, I hope that the independent theater sees a rise. Occupy the cinema. Bye.